Lost on the High Seas, a serialized gay romance taking place aboard the ocean liner the Majestic Star. Follow along as I bring everyone on an epic Southern Sea adventure with love, laughter, and possible destruction. Penned by Riley Mason, narrated by me, Brian Shepard. Episode 10, True Feelings. Hearing that Ben could possibly be still on board upset those who had overheard the radio call. Chance, the mayor, and Jordan. Jack and Christopher were on the other side of the ship. Poor Eric had to wait to board last, as Justin was not having it. Almost like he was reliving what had happened on the Coral. Scared and obviously frightened, Justin hugged the wall across from the lifeboat station where it was waiting to be launched. Babe, it's okay to be scared. That's why I'm here, to protect you and make sure we get through this together. I promise. It'll be okay, Eric said as he stood at the railing holding out his hand for Justin to take. Yet Justin didn't seem to want to budge from against the wall. In Justin's mind, this is where he was separated from Eric when they were loading into the lifeboats when the Coral was being evacuated and the bad guy took Eric away from him. No, he can't go through that again. I'm sorry, Eric. I feel it's safer if we just stay on board. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I can't get into one of those things. No, let's stay. Are you kidding me right now? No offense, my dear, but it's time for you to get your tookish in this funny orange tube right this instant. I have one more cruise in me, and don't you dare ruin it for me. Now, either let's go or be dragged off. Your choice. Oh, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, Anita blurted out, of course, ending it with her sarcastic grin. Justin, looking shocked, simply thought for a second. Eric began to smile as he felt Justin's hand take his. On the lifeboat they went. They were the last to load and the last to leave the ship, now to just drift among the ice. So now we've come to the very tippity-top of the list of cruise ship fears. The captain, in a lifeboat, while watching his ship start its watery death. The Majestic Star was more than just a cruise ship to Joey. The Star was his job and home away from home for 6 to 8 months out of the year. The Star meant more to him than just the job, though. It was where he found Chance. So he holds the Star close to his heart. To top it all off, and to make it even worse, his friend, Ben, is on the Star. Oh my God, we need to go back to the ship. Ben will need help, Chance said as he sat next to Joey. Roger, Captain Webb, Captain Jericho has left the ship and is already on his way to find Cruise Director Fairbanks. A voice came over the radio, cutting Joey off from his response, which would have been, heck yeah. As soon as Brian heard over the radio that Ben was unaccounted for, and possibly still on board, drove him into action by taking a boat over to the Star and search for Ben. He just found the guy. He was definitely not giving him up. Ben, on the other hand, thought he was doing well. When the ship was listing, as bad as it is now, Ben found it was difficult to navigate through the ship. Now that water had reached the electrical, sparks and fires were starting in areas of the ship. Like the fire that blazed out of control in the dry storage hold. Everything from dry goods, extra linens for the dining room and cabins, to fine art, and something Jack Jameson wanted locked up. Strange. I never did find out. Focus, Ben, he thought. There was no way that he was getting help, as the engine room crew, along with Chief Wilton, had already gone up deck to assist in the evacuation of the ship, and by now there would be no one left. Ben needed to get to the other side. He was so close to easily making his way out. Think. He needed to think and continue to be confident and sure of himself. Looking around, Ben noticed a figure through the flames and heat on the other side of the room. Oh, great, he thought. Is this what happens before you die? You see people who are not there? The one person I'd love to see again? It can't be. Ben! Ben! The figure yelled over. As Ben looked, the person was pointing up. The air duct. Of course. The air duct runs the length of the dry hold and straight into other areas of the ship. Climbing the shelving and crawling his way across should work. That is, if the fire doesn't cook him alive in the metal tube. Well, it's better than backtracking under and having to swim his way through. No thanks. So, it's now or never. Climbing the shelving, Ben was able to reach up and pull down on the vent door. Pulling himself up and looking in and down the shaft, Ben noticed that it would be a tight squeeze. Remembering Anita scolding him for eating Hostess. She'd catch him in the early morning while making his rounds while eating an iced honey bun. She said the stuff is ghastly and horrid and should stop eating it at once, adding that he was also to throw his secret stash in the laundry room away. How she knew baffled him. So, he was now grateful for the intervention, as Ben seemed to slither along the shaft like a snake. Smoke and heat filled the air duct as he made his way across, making him move just a little faster. He felt like he was inside an easy-bake oven. Almost to the end of the air duct, the star decided to right herself, causing everything that was not bolted down to move and crash around the room. It was worse inside the air duct, as Ben could hear the glass breaking, metal being twisted, causing the fires to only grow larger. Yet above all that noise, Ben could feel the ship shudder as it moved to right itself. The groans it gave off sounded like the star knew it was dying. The righting of the ship only meant that there was now enough water to fill the stern by then pulling it down into the water. By doing so, it sent Ben sliding down the shaft. As his body came down with force, Ben whacked his head against the vent hatch, which completely busted open. So getting out, it seemed, would be easy. It was going to be even easier to get out and off the ship when you have someone else to help. Ben was really grateful when he finally made it out of the air duct and noticed it was Captain Jericho who helped him. Wait, what's he doing on the ship? Are you crazy? What are you doing on the ship? It's sinking if you haven't noticed. Of course I've noticed. I thought perhaps you didn't get the memo, so I had to come over here and see what you were up to. What do I find? You, monkeying around. Come on, time to go. Brian responded by taking Ben's hand and helping him up the corridor. Now that it felt like a mountain they were climbing. I still can't believe you came back for me. What, and let the ocean have you? Not if I can help it. Well, thank you. You can thank me when we're safe and back aboard my ship, where I'm sure your friends are waiting. Now, which way to the main stairs? We need to take the stairs to the left and up, Ben answered as he pointed to the stairwell that would lead them up to the next deck, getting them closer to the main staircase, and then off the ship. As Brian and Ben navigated their way through the ship, as it began to slide even more into the icy water, passengers were being hoisted up into the sun, wrapped in blankets by staff, and brought inside for something warm to drink. But no one really wanted to leave the deck, as they could all see what was happening, and the horrible sight of the ship that they were just on, sinking in the southern sea in the middle of the morning. Barbara made sure that passengers were finally moved indoors, as it began to snow, and the wind was starting to pick up. Now that everybody was safely on board the Sun, were waiting for a sign of hope that Jericho was able to find and rescue Ben. Joey, Eric, and Anita all stood outside and watched as the star started to make its descent at a much faster rate. The sounds of smashing glass, twisting metal, and the sounds the ship made was no sight anyone thought that they would ever witness, or again for some. Before turning away, Anita had seen enough. An explosion from the star, which they all felt, had them looking in awe as the ship just seemed to break, almost in half. The stern part of the ship bobbed around for what seemed like mere seconds, only to then be taken by the sea as it finally slipped under the water. "Oh my God! Have we heard anything about Ben?" Anita asked, still looking on in horror as the smoke and flames bursted out of the side of the ship. When no one answered and continued to look, Anita had her answer. The bow, now free of its back half, came crashing down after being in midair. The ship just seems to sit, floating on the water. Joey could clearly see the engine room, which once held the two fastest engines in the entire fleet. "Joey, it seems part of the bottom hull was forced upwards and seems to be keeping some of the water out," Eric said as he pointed to the bottom plate, which was bent upwards. This was keeping the bow floating, for now. Before Joey had the chance to respond, his eyes caught what looked like two people climbing up from the tear in the ship and getting themselves up onto the deck. "Seriously? You've got to be kidding me," Joey blurted out as he ran into the direction of the bridge. Eric and Anita both watched as two crewmen and Joey were launched into the sea into a rescue boat. "Well, as I live and breathe," Anita said as Eric turned and noticed she was looking at the star again. "Get a load of this." She pointed towards the top of the bow. "It's Ben and Captain Jericho on the bow. They're alive." She smiled. Now to see how this rescue was going to work. The weather was getting worse. At the rate the storm was coming in, visibility would be reduced, because even now, the snow was getting heavier. "Why hasn't she sunk yet?" Ben asked as he and Jericho made their way up to the end of the bow, and somehow have to come up with a new plan to get off the ship. The original plan failed after the engine room decided to blow up and take half the ship. Brian's boat was tied up to the ship, so when the stern went down, it went with it. Then again, it would be like an author to drag out the ending, if this was a story. Almost sounds like a Ryland Mason book, Ben thought to himself, if only briefly before reality set back in. "I don't care why it's still floating," Brian answered. "My main focus is getting you off the ship, which won't be difficult, as I think our ride is here," pointing to the rescue ship from the sun. Looked like Joey waving as it came up close to the bow. "We need to take the rope and climb down into the boat," he said as he walked over to the first lifeboat station. The rope still hanging against the ship would be an easy way off. Just slide down the rope. "You first, babe," Brian said, which of course had Ben doing a double take, as that was not given an okay the last time they spoke. Ben was still wondering where this kind of relationship would lead to. Well, that just told him where. The guy came over to rescue him on a sinking ship. "God, he's perfect," he blurted out loud, which was too late to fix. "Thanks," Brian responded with a smile as Joey blushed and took a hold of the rope and basically repelled down off the bow of the ship and let go to drop into the rescue boat. Ben would never forget this morning. Everyone now back aboard the Sun, happy to see Ben alive and well. thanks to his hero, Captain Jericho, who would not let Bren out of his sight, as he most of all went through the most. Ben told him he was just trying to survive. Brave is what Brian saw. The bow of the Star stayed afloat for another 20 minutes before the steel bottom plating finally gave way and broke off, sending water into the ship and finally sinking her. A sad sight to see. After some rest and relaxation, friends dined together as the sun made its way back to Cape Town. Everyone made their plans for when they would make it back to port. Mayor Shepard and Jordan would be flying back to New York to focus on his re-election. Eric and Justin would return to Nassau, back to the Coral, and prepare for its maiden voyage now that the retrofit is completed. Joey was summoned to the corporate office as questions needed answers as to what happened to the Star. Chance would be staying with him until everything was settled before returning to Florida. Anita really didn't say where she was headed. She did say she had one more cruise in her. Ben made sure to tell her that she was to check in with him, if they don't cross paths. As for Jack and Christopher, Jack was in contact with Majestic Cruises, as he seemed to forget something on board the Star. And if he had permission to go and get it, sounds like another adventure for them. Ben and Brian were getting along and spending as much time as they could, considering Brian was the captain of the ship, so command came first. It was nice to be able to communicate in person rather than through text. Ben would have to wait and see where he would be transferred to. For now, he and Brian would continue to spend time together and figure it out as they go. Hey everyone, Rylan here. Just a quick reminder that you can find more information about me and the stories I write by going to my Facebook, facebook.com/author.r.mason. From there, you can find updates, follow me on Instagram, talk to me, and more. Thank you for taking the time to listen and for the support. An R. Mason Media Production. Copyright 2022.